A powerful hurricane is forecast to strike Florida midweek. Good Saturday morning, I'm Mike Naso with this video update. We have a brand new tropical depression in the western Gulf of Mexico, and it is going to cause problems for the United States. There it is on the map of the Gulf, and right there it is organizing. This is a new tropical depression, and like I said, the forecast does not look good for our friends in western Florida. Here's the latest on Tropical Depression 14 as of 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and it was at 22.1 north, 95.1 west. Winds are 35 miles per hour, the pressure around 1,007 millibars or so, so it's a weak tropical depression. However, it is forecast to become a tropical storm later today, and then a hurricane, and a strong hurricane by the time midweek comes around. By Wednesday, we could have a landfalling hurricane of a powerful intensity, at least a Category 2 right now, somewhere on the west coast of Florida. It's currently moving north-northeast at 3, and it should kind of move east slowly and then accelerate as it feels a trough to the north. We'll talk about that in a second. Here's the visible satellite imagery as the sun begins to come up right in here where the bubbling is, right over top of the center. It's not terribly well organized, but for a tropical depression, it's been coming together quite well. The last update I did at 11 p.m. about 12 hours ago, this system was not nearly as well defined as it is now, and so it does appear that it's on its way to becoming a tropical storm. If and when it gets a name, the next name on the list is Milton. Now, could it become a hurricane or a strong hurricane? Yes, the waters are very, very warm. The wind shear will remain low along the track of the storm, except off to the north. But like I mentioned in last night's update, if you watched, we would have kind of the flow in tandem with the storm moving in the same direction. So as it gets dragged along by the troughiness and the ridging moving along, it will then not feel as much wind shear coming from the west. So it could actually enhance the system as it develops, kind of like an ice skater pulling her arms in as she spins on the ice. So that's not good news at all as far as intensification. Here are the models. Now these are the GFS ensembles as of 6Z, and they all show the system becoming a potent hurricane and making landfall between the Big Bend and down here in areas near, say, Fort Myers, Marco Island, that region down there, closer to Collier County. That does mean that the center of the track lies somewhere in the general vicinity of Tampa Bay or Sarasota, Venice. So everybody needs to be looking at their hurricane plans and possible evacuation routes. We should have more watches and warnings for the Florida coast, as well as storm surge information as the day progresses Saturday and into Sunday. Now, the track, again, we have troughiness moving through the Midwest, and that's going to be kind of eroding the ridging here to the north of the storm, and that's going to allow the storm to just glide towards the east-northeast and then accelerate towards the west coast of Florida, and that's why we think that's where this system is going to go. The models are also in good agreement that this thing's going to kind of just drag eastward, and then as it strengthens and accelerates, maybe a little more east-northeast to northeast in the general direction there of the western coastline of Florida. Look at some of these intensity forecasts. Not good. Not good. Category 3 and 4. So right now the forecast from the Hurricane Center as of Saturday, this update's about quarter to noon, they have it about 110 miles per hour, and that's a very strong Category 2 hurricane, almost a major hurricane. Here's the GFS model. They show an impressive hurricane in the Gulf sometime around Wednesday, and if you watch what happens with it, the hurricane slams right there north of Tampa in the general vicinity of the southern Big Bend, areas that don't need it, but you would have that onshore flow, remember, with storm surge for areas there from Tampa south. So that's what the big concern would be, not to mention heavy rainfall. Now this is the H-Wharf hurricane model as of the 6Z run, and watch what happens. It blossoms our system into a powerful, dangerous major hurricane north of the Yucatan, and then it does start to feel the effects of some wind shear, but still makes landfall as a dangerous major hurricane just north of Tampa Bay. That would be horrendous for storm surge, because Tampa Bay, you'd be on the right front quadrant with an onshore flow. You don't want to see that. So the key messages from the National Hurricane Center as of Saturday morning: number one, the depression is forecast to quickly intensify as it moves eastward to northeastward across the Gulf of Mexico and be at or near major hurricane strength when it reaches the west coast of Florida midweek. Number two, there is an increasing risk of life-threatening storm surge, you know what we've seen in the Big Bend of Florida, an increasing storm surge and wind impact risk for areas of the west coast of Florida beginning late Tuesday or Wednesday. Residents in those areas should ensure that they have their hurricane plan in place. Follow any advice given by local officials and check back for updates to the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center. And of course, please subscribe to this YouTube page as we'll be zeroing in on this system as time goes by. And finally, number three, areas of heavy rainfall are going to impact Florida Sunday and Monday. Now, that will be ahead of the hurricane. Remember what happened with Helene. That inland flooding that devastated Appalachia and areas of the southeast wasn't just from Helene. It was because those areas were already soaked and waterlogged. We will have heavy rainfall well ahead of the tropical system, and then heavy rainfall more directly related to the system Tuesday through Wednesday. That brings the risk of flash urban and areas of flooding there along the minor and isolated river flooding as well along the west coast of Florida and inland. So again, everybody needs to be taking this seriously, especially with what just happened with Hurricane Helene. There is the satellite of our developing depression here in the western Gulf of Mexico, forecast to become a tropical storm, then a hurricane, then a very powerful hurricane, prior to making landfall along the west coast. I'm Mike Nasel with the latest on the tropics. Stay tuned. We'll be able to zero in on this system as time goes by. We should have hurricane watches and warnings and storm surge warnings issued along the west coast of Florida as early as Saturday afternoon. I will talk to you guys next time with more on this system.